Hello, this is V. Welcome to the Power of You with V. I am your host, and tonight we have a special guest. But before we get started, I want to always put this disclaimer out. We will have a lot of health topics, mental wellness topics, medical topics, but this does not take the place of therapy or medical advice. Now, before we get started, I want to let everyone know that I am a Reiki practitioner and a CBT and REBT life coach. So before we get into the show, I want to kind of explain what CBT means. So CBT means cognitive behavioral therapy. So when we think about cognitive behavior therapy, we think about you know patterns that may be negative or negative thought patterns that we have. So CBT helps one just kind of take those patterns, those negative thoughts that may become emotions at times, which causes us to make decisions. We take those thoughts and we help people identify them and change them into a positive thought pattern. We disrupt those patterns with cognitive behavior therapy, life coaching. And with this life coaching, we don't diagnose, we don't assess, we just help change those patterns. Now, our EBT is fractional emotive behavior therapy. So when we think about that particular modality with life coaching, what we do with that is the core is still the same as far as CBT, but what happens with that is we look at negative dominant thought patterns along with irrational thoughts. And so when that in that particular modality, it just helps with taking those thoughts that we have control over and redirecting them to a positive side. Now, when we think about both modalities, there's this thing called locus of control that we have to know. We have to know this. So it's like three circles. In the center of the locus of control is what you individually can control. You can control yourself. You can control your thoughts. You can control the choose to take care of yourself, which is called self-care. You can choose to be gentle with yourself. It's called self-compassion. You can choose to help others. You can choose to be kind. You can choose to, even when you're angry, stop. You can choose to set a boundary. Then the next part of the locus of control is the second outer core, and that is influence, which means that you can influence others with the decisions that you make. So let's say, for instance, if you are in a great healing space and you decide, I really want to get myself healed, or I am a community leader, I am all these things that, could help other people, but I'm really helping myself. You can influence others by being that type of leader. People watch you. People are like, oh my gosh, I can do the same thing. So we have the first part is you can control yourself, but you can influence others. Now, part number 3 of the locus of control is you don't have control over other people. You don't have control over other things. So you can't control the weather. You can't control how people treat you. You can't control the things that people say about you. You can't control their actions. You can't control the future because it's here. You can't, it's going to come. And change is one of the things you can't control either, but things change all the time. So when we think about one, we can control ourselves. We can control our thoughts. We also want to think about 2, influence. So oftentimes we have leaders that can influence people to change based on their gifts, based on the things that they can do, based on their positive energy and positive things that they're doing. And so tonight we have a special guest who is going to come and talk about some of the things that he's doing to influence our community. Our special guest is Marcus Davis. He is the program director and founder of Royal Connections, which include Girls on the Grow and Building Boys to Men. Marcus Davis, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We appreciate you for everything that you do in our community.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me. Before we get started, I think this is really dope, this platform that you give for us to be able to get this out, because this is important information our people need to know.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm ready to jump right in. Marcus, I'm ready to jump right in. So, the first question I want to bring to you is like, could you just tell the listeners about Royal Connections and your purpose for the organization and just your overall purpose for being an influencer in our community?
Well, Royal Connections was designed as an umbrella for community leaders, businesses, and just a regular citizen that wanted to participate, that can't be out at ground zero, that can't give their time all the way. You still can be a part of being a village to our kids. And under this umbrella, we have Building Boys and Men and Girls on the Grow. And with these programs, we're providing opportunity and options for these young ladies and young men to have that they may not have in their normal day life. We creating that space for them.
That is good. So, our community, we have a lot going on in our community, and I'm sure because you're in the trenches and you're on the ground, right? So a lot of times we having some alarming trends going on in the African American community where our kids are committing suicide. It's an upward trend. So per the National Institute of Mental Health, some of the risk factors of suicide include bullying, being a bully and bullying others, LGBTQ discrimination, exposure to trauma, racial discrimination, like death by racism and police shootings, access to firearms and violence, and lack of exposure to mental health services, this lack of access, and then lack of awareness. You have created a safe space for our kids, for a lot of our young kids. And because you are in the trenches, you are so relatable to our kids. They confide in you a lot. And as a mentor in the community, what are some ways you are creating a safe space and outlets for our kids? Because you're creating outlets to like different classes and different workshops. And then what advice would you give to parents regarding allowing that safe space for our kids? So that's a two-part question.
Well, part of that, the safe space, it's not just the four walls that we can have a man. There's a safe space mentally for our young kids. And right now we have to protect that right now because, and the only way we get to do that is to provide lessons where we can teach our kids how to communicate, when to talk, and when they should, because this helps the suicide rate because they don't have anybody to talk to, and when they don't have anybody to go to, the next space is to say they don't want to be here, and that is a very dangerous place. So we have to protect those spaces. So not just the four walls we keep them in, we have to mentally protect that space as well. And the second question was again?
Okay, so when we talk about that safe space, what advice would you offer to parents regarding a safe space for kids? So I ask that a lot because kids will come to you and tell you things that they wouldn't even tell their parents, right? And so sometimes as parents, we don't give them that safe space or make them feel safe to communicate, but they do come to you. So what advice would you offer to parents as it relates to that?
I know some parents that's doing great jobs, and sometimes they're trying to figure out what they should do. Well, we didn't have a parenting book, and we do the best we can as parents. But when there's a great program that you see fit that your kids be in, then those type of options are important on your end, that you make those decisions for them as their minds grow. Some things they may not know, but if you put them in the right position to feed them, children are like sponges. They're going to absorb life. Matter of fact, we all are going to absorb life. And the best thing we can do as parents is give them what they need. The world's going to give them whatever they want to give them. And then we try to wring out as much as we can to give them right direction and guidance to get to the next levels of their lives.
Okay, well, I want to just kind of probe on this a little bit. So with the safe space, so a lot of times children feel like parents are very judgmental, right?
Absolutely.
Because a child has never been a parent has always been a child, right? So oftentimes parents take their experiences as kids and may not want them to make a mistake, or may not want them to do certain things that may come across as being judgmental. And sometimes it is judgmental, and sometimes kids just kind of cringe to tell parents or have that safe space. So what would you tell a parent to be able to open that up so kids can feel comfortable with coming to them if they do have a problem or a suicidal thought or a thought that may not be as favorable to the parent, that may disappoint them or may make a parent mad? What would you give what advice would you give to parents to create that space?
What I will tell parents is learn the difference between being angry, mad, and disappointed. Those are three different places. And when kids start recognizing the anger and you're mad, they reflect different from you letting them know you're disappointed. Let's talk about it. Let's get to the next level. But we don't get there if we don't keep that line of communication. If they think honesty and the truth going to get them in trouble, then they're probably not going to be honest and truthful to you. So at that point, you got to leave a door open that says, let's fix this. How do we fix this? And with that being done is to be able to keep that line of communication open. And if if they're not communicating with you as well, then you put them in great programs where they're capable of strengthening their communication skills by communicating with people and in groups to fellowship to help them open up and let their feelings out. Sometimes they need that space.
Okay. Well, oftentimes we harp on like negative, like kids are violent, or kids are doing these things, and this is really happening, right? But negative things are oftentimes magnified. There are so many young leaders, right, that need to also get that recognition as well. You did a peer-to-peer panel of young men that you've mentored or you've coached in some capacity. Tell us more about that panel and tell us more about like their accomplishments and why was that necessary?
Well, peer-to-peer was to do peer-to-peer was to give kids a look at themselves. That's the way I looked at when I put kids on the panel that was the same age as the kids that was in the audience, year older, a couple years younger, and show them their greatness and how it feels good to be still great and cool at the same time. On the panel was 4 guys, great young men on great paths. They come from different backgrounds, but they understand the value of their greatness. And I wanted these other young men and other young ladies to see that and know their self-worth, know that they can, if you're going to follow something great. It's okay to follow. Every great leader has to know how to follow. It's all about what you're following. And so with putting those kids there, they gave their own peers an opportunity to say, you know what, that's a good place to follow. That's a good lane to be in. And so that was the ideal of putting peer-to-peer together. And it was great. It was great. It
was actually super dope. So those are the things that can disrupt negative patterns, right? So the pattern now is to magnify kids that are not doing good, right? Let's magnify all these things. So when you think about like celebrating kids, what other ways can we celebrate kids that are doing things like that? What other ways can we display kids? And are you going to continue to have those peer-to-peer nice positive injections in our community?
Absolutely. One thing I would tell the people that you got to trust the process. You got to trust the process. We didn't get damaged overnight. We won't heal overnight. So when we think about program like Roy Connection, Building Boys, Men, Girls on the Grow, it's a trust the process type of program. I will continue opening doors, giving opportunity, options for these kids to other lanes that they can look in. We have to continue to do that, and there has to be a sense of consistency with it. So I'm happy. I love it.
All right. Well, I have one last question because we'll be wrapping up pretty soon. Mm-hmm. We need more people on the ground to bring about change.
Absolutely.
We do. The healing process must occur in our village so that our generations can heal. So I want to bring something up that you probably hadn't shared with people, but you are working on a book, right? That you're currently writing. And I just want you to just talk briefly about what's the importance of facing the mirror and the significance of that, and how does it help us heal?
The mirror is a very important place. The world has so many things in front of us. You have to be able to go home and look in the mirror. You have to be able to go home and know who you are at the end of the day. I see people now, we live a facade to, get into the world and what the world wants for us. But when you're alone in that mirror, how do we lie to ourselves? How do we lie and say who we are? It goes back to that self-control thing. Yeah, it's not easy, but we have to exercise the same way we exercise when we want to get stronger. Our mental thought pattern must have that as well. So we have to have repetition on altering certain things in life and changing it. And that doesn't happen until you stand in the mirror. And one thing about standing in the mirror, it puts you in a place to say, sometimes, and a lot of times, I got to be mad at me. I got to look at me. I got to understand that where did I put myself at? What decisions I could have made different to go down another lane. So the mirror is very important. It could be a reflection of something very ugly or something beautiful.
Okay, well, there we have it. And before we leave, I want to just leave on this note. It's called self-awareness. We have to be self-aware in order to heal. So if you know, half the battle was won. So I want to thank you again, Marcus Davis, for coming out. Now, if you want to get your kids involved in Royal Connections, or you want to partner with Royal Connections, or you want to donate to the program or donate to the cause, you can reach Marcus Davis at 704-615-6116 on Facebook at RC Mentoring. The organization's Facebook page is Royal Connections, at Royal Connections, and Instagram at RoyalConnectionsMentoring.com. Mentoring, I'm sorry. Now, I also want you to subscribe to The Power of You with V. Make sure you click like on the bottom of this video and subscribe on YouTube. I am at The Power of You with V on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter. I want to leave you with this last statement. You have the power to change you and an extraordinary ability to influence others. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday at 6. Thank you.
I only do this because I love you.
Yeah, we gon' get you there.
Gotta respect that, right?
Yeah, we gon' get you there. Yeah.
Standing at this hospital bed, looking at mama unconscious, and I'm growing nauseous. Please, God, stop this. I done had too many losses. Can't take another coffin. It's like I'm hit too often, and one day I'll get called in, carried by the pallbearer. But until then, mama, take care of your children. Got an angel in the building. Can't replace you. You one in a million. And though you not speaking, I'm still expressing my feelings, cause I've been put in a position. Gotta make a decision. I'm still dealing with the fact that it's the beginning and the ending, and I don't wanna comprehend. I'm losing a mama and a friend, and the weight of her life weigh heavy in my hands, and I don't understand. And though you see me smiling, that ain't real and that's pretend. I'm hurting inside. I want the pain just to end, so I'm hollering for help. Somebody who care, somebody who love me, help me get there.
Like an eagle in the air, grab my wings, I'll get you there. With God's saving grace, I'll get you to that place. Yeah, you don't have to walk alone on this road.